Alright guys, I'm working on my 24 road glide today. I'm doing an oil change on it. I actually dropped the oil about 4 days ago. I've been letting it drain the whole time. I'm a firm believer in letting them sit, especially after you run it hot. I still got to pull the oil filter yet. I'm going to pull that, clean it out, the bracket and everything. And then, like I say, we're doing all three holes, doing the primary, as well as the transmission, obviously the motor. All right, let's dive into this. All right, guys, I'm working on my 24 road glide today. I'm doing an oil change on it. I actually dropped the oil about 4 days ago. I've been letting it drain the whole time. I'm a firm believer in letting them sit, especially after you run it hot. I still got to pull the oil filter yet. I'm going to pull that, clean it out, the bracket and everything. And then, like I say, we're doing all three holes, doing the primary, as well as the transmission, obviously the motor. All right, let's dive into this. All right, guys, I'm working on my 24 road glide today. I'm doing an oil change on it. I actually dropped the oil about 4 days ago. I've been letting it drain the whole time. I'm a firm believer in letting them sit, especially after you run it hot. I still got to pull the oil filter yet. I'm going to pull that, clean it out, the bracket and everything. And then, like I say, we're doing all three holes, doing the primary, as well as the transmission, obviously the motor. All right, let's dive into this. So in pulling the oil filter, I would 110% recommend the Harley Davidson oil filter tool. Nothing beats it. They've actually got a funnel that goes there too for the drainage. That I don't have yet, so I have to make do. But 100%, this thing is worth every penny. So you can see I got that off. I did leak just a few drops of oil, just a little splash basically. Because I let it sit and drain for so long, there was actually minimal oil in the filter. So that made it to my advantage on the removal big time. Yeah, that all looks good. I will say, so I wasn't the one to do the last one on this as the dealer. That filter was extremely tight to me. I almost contemplated going from the 3/8 drive to the next drive up ratchet just because it was that tight. But I did break it loose. I don't know. I don't know if it's a heat thing or why, but that's pretty tight for an oil filter in my opinion. I still need to inspect. Let's see here. Yeah, I just won't do that. Inspect my. So that's the plug from the motor. It's got a little bit of debris on it. Needs cleaned. That's the one from the transmission. You can see a bit more metal. You can see they put plumber's tape on it. Whatever. And then you got the primary. That's got quite a bit. That's all from the clutch. Well, they don't look terrible. I've seen a lot worse. Well, I guess I'll get to cleaning and start to filling this thing back up and getting ready to go again. Little side note. So by the way, whenever you're doing an oil change and if you're using the Harley Davidson catch pan, so I do this every other time and I forget. So right there on it is a vent. Of course, you got your fill hole. When you're draining, it goes in there. When the oil's hot, the plastic fills with air and it rises and becomes a bubble, and the oil no longer drains in, but turns around and just overflows. Unless you pull that plug. You pull that plug, then it fills oil perfectly. So learn from my mistake. Do not, I repeat, do not forget to pull that air valve or that little plug there. Otherwise, yeah, you'll end up with oil everywhere. I've done it a couple times. It's not the end of the world, but just think about it like I need to. So when you're cleaning these, be sure to inspect them O-rings. Make sure it's good. Arguably, you should probably change it every time that you do an oil change. I order all my oil from Amsoil, and they come with O-rings for them, so that's really handy. And of course, like I say, that's all the way down to the Amsoil filter. Like I say, big Amsoil fan. 2050 transmission fluid in the primary. Yeah, do inspect those, because the last thing you want is a leak. And if it looks bad, change it. Or if you want, you've got them, just change it anyway. All right, so here we go. The motor holds, in theory, according to the book, around 4 quarts of oil. Primary holds 32, or transmission holds 32 ounces. Primary holds around 34. But specifically, when you're filling the primary, you want to fill up to the clutch discs. Just kind of see where you're at. I've always just kind of went for what the manual says. I've never had any real issue. Now, when I got into bigger horsepower motors, I did have to switch from the Amsoil primary because it was too good of a lubricant, and the clutch was actually slipping. So I switched over to bell rays, and that worked. That solved it. I was no longer having clutch slippage at a high power pulls. But other than that, I stick with the Amsoil. It's obviously a really good lubricant, unless you're just putting out some power and you're pulling a heavy load. And I was pulling hard loads and doing stupid stuff. But anyway, yeah, I'd slip then. But second I put the bell ray in, no more slip. All right, let's keep diving. So the derby cover is a T27 Torx to remove. You got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them bolts to pull. Get them pulled, and then we'll start filling that primary here shortly. So the side note, this floorboard is in the way of that bolt, so I'm going to need to loosen that, if not completely pull it, to rotate this out of the way to be able to access this to get the derby pulled. That's all part of it. So there is the derby cover. It's the O-ring. Typically, I'd recommend replacing that with every change. So that's what's going to keep your oil in. And let's go ahead and see what we got going here. I have stashed away. So that little funnel, handy dandy, works wonderful. Check it out. Now I can drop the oil in there and easy peasy. There again, I know we don't like dealers, but I bought it from the manufacturer, and it works as good as advertised. So on my bike, 32 ounces. I don't know if you can see, but that's the oil. And it's just right there. To me, it looks exactly where it should be. A little bit of light to the show. Yeah, I think we're cooking, guys. I'm gonna clean over that cover, get the cover back on, put it back per torque, and hop over to the transmission. So when it comes to doing the oil filter, because it's a side mount, because that's the last spot that picks up oil, I'm not worried about filling the filter as much as I used to be. And it's next to impossible. I mean, you can get lucky and throw it up there, but I just find it better just to go ahead and oil this ring up and put it on, and then put the oil in the crankcase. So while I'm putting oil in the motor, I thought I would talk a little bit. got a fueling vented dipstick. That's one of the first things I bought for this bike. Brand new, off the showroom floor. I bought that and put it on immediately just to see if I have any blow-by issues, because if there is, there's always going to be some blow-by in these bikes. I mean, it's just part of the combustion engine. It's just going to be there. So having a crank release like that, it keeps it in a good pressure where you're not building a bunch of back pressure on the bottom of the pistons. This is allowing it to blow on by and then vapes on out to the society. It's got a little filter, and then the way you route it up and down, kind of like a trap you would in your plumbing. It's the same thing. So oil, if for whatever reason oil was to go up, oil will come back down. It won't pump it out. That is, unless you have a horrible amount of back pressure, or if you overfill it with oil. I had that on a 2011. It held 4 quarts, but it'd like to be around 3.7 quarts, because that's about 3/10 of a quart's about what it'd blow out that dipstick, and that's just where it would run. Then it wouldn't blow anymore. That was its happy spot. So each one of these motors has their happy area that they prefer to be in. The other is the air breather. You know, the guys were venting those. I've done that. Something I've want to do with this at some point, but not until I put in a performance air breather. At this point in the stock one, I'm not going to put forth the time. It's not collecting any oil in there that I've been able to determine anyway, so it really is kind of moot at this point. And another thing I want to cover real quick, not related to the oil change whatsoever. So when I bought this bike, like I say, I was riding in 2011. I had a hammock seat. Absolutely loved that seat. They told me they wouldn't fit. It would not fit on the new frames, yada, yada, yada. So I left my hammock seat on my bike and rode their somewhat comfortable, but not really comfortable seat that came stock with the bike. I got home. I hated it. I went on eBay. I actually ordered, since they don't fit the new bikes anymore, they've quit making them. So I ordered a hammock seat off eBay, but it's a demo seat. It's from the dealership. It's one that everybody rode, so it's good and broke in, and it was cheap. It was like $150, because who wants a seat that says demo all over it? Other than my cheap ass, I totally went for it. So anyway, to fit it, here's the thing. So it really wasn't this area right here. That part of the seat is what was tight against these panels. I took a heat gun, heated up the plastic inside there, laid the seat upside down, and then took and bent them out. I mean, we're not talking 1/4 inch on each side, maybe, and slid the seat on. Got a hammock seat on a 2024 Road Glide from a previous older model. 100%, they do fit. Don't let them feed you a bunch of jazz. You just got to take a little bit of time, and you can make it work. It's a Harley. When haven't we been able to make stuff work on these bikes? I mean, seriously. Anyway, yeah, don't fall into that myth. I mean, no, you may be happy with the other seats, and that's fine. I mean, I'm just particular for my seat. That's what's good for me, and what's good for me is probably not good for you. And what's good for you, I'd probably complain about. So hey, do what works for you, but don't fall so quick to be victimized like I have by what they always claim. And then some stuff it is what it is. It's gospel. You're not going to change it. The windshields for that say you're not going to force a different windshield on this bike. It's just not an option. You're going to have to stick with what they got. I do use Freedom Shields. They're a high quality windshield, 100%. They're thicker than stock. There's a lot of testimonies on these things. Guys are hitting buzzards with them and they're not breaking. Not saying we're going around to hit buzzards. I'm saying if you ride enough, we've all had that time where a damn bird has flew in front of us and we've tried to dodge it And there's going to be that day that maybe you'd be the guy that catches the bird. Wouldn't it be nice to have a windshield that didn't break? Just a thought, just saying. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and check this motor oil quick, and I'm going to do the transmission, and I'm going to get this thing off the lift. And it seriously needs cleaned. Obviously, I've not did very good on washing my bike. Continuing on the note of things that don't fit but fit, I have O'Holen's, yeah, you really can't see them, but you can see the reservoirs, shocks that were off that 2011 Ultra Classic. I pulled them off. I put the stock shocks back on them before we went and traded it in on this bike. And I wasn't going to give those shocks up. Even if they didn't fit on this, I've got a 99 Electric Glide. I knew they'd fit on that. I did not want to throw away a $1,400 pair of shocks that weren't going to matter shit on a trade-in whatsoever. So anyway, I put them on this. They fit. And they ride just as good as they did on the 2011, as they did on this. And they ride better, though I will say the 24 suspension, phenomenal upgrade. Still not quite the upgrade that it could be. It wasn't to that level. Those things are fantastic. There again, shocks, the vented dipstick, those would be my two top recommendations on a bike to do first thing, before exhaust, before carburation, before jumping into tuning, before any of that other stuff. Because the rideability that those shocks, a good quality set of shocks give, it's uncomparable. Especially if you're riding two up. I don't ride two up as much now that the wife has her bike. But when we do, it's great. It is, there's no heavy jars. It's nice and smooth. It glides. Solo, same thing. I've got a gravel driveway after ride down. It is so smooth that I don't feel the gravel bumps as I'm going out. It just glides across, floats. It's incredible. I didn't think such a thing was possible. Like I say, anyway, I'm going to go ahead and continue on with this fluid change. All right, so transmission oil is filled in. I'm just finished up. I'm putting the dipstick back on. Be cautious with it on these new models. They're plastic for whatever reason, so I'm sure that's a wonderful thing to possibly get stripped out if you're not careful. It seems to be the same as the others in the past. You want it screwed in all the way, screw it back out, check for your fill or not fill to make sure you're where you should be at. Another thought, figure maybe I should explain why I use AMSOIL, and why I'm not using dealer oil. I don't really have a great as to why on the dealer, other than their oil doesn't specify. It's specifically for the bikes, but their ingredients, their qualifications, unlike with AMSOIL, aren't there. And I've watched the bench test. Project Farm, he does a really good video on the oil breakdowns and tests. AMSOIL passes the flying colors. And then Kevin Baxter at Baxter's Garage, he recommends roundabout AMSOIL. I do believe he's going to come out with his own oil. And if that's the case, I will probably jump ship and go there. I trust his expertise full hands down, no questions. But he is the reason that I originally started paying attention to AMSOIL. And then I just seen it get reinforced time and time again. I'm like, I'll stick with it. Now, warranty-wise, yes, the dealership wants you to run their oil. And you can do it on your own. I think the receipts, it may be a little harder on the claims. But I'm not too worried on this particular motor setup that there's going to be an issue of the mechanics. If there's going to be any recalls or issues like the one that we've already had, is an electrical thing. It wasn't anything to do mechanical. So whether you're running whatever oil, it's not going to matter. It's not going to affect on that part. Now, if you have a crank pin get eat up and the bearing goes away and you're running a different oil, they're going to hold you to task over that, unfortunately. And I'll tell you now, it's not because of AMSOIL, and it's not because of anything. other than probably some faulty factor in it, but good luck on selling them on that. But I've got the oil change done. I'm going to drop it off the lift. I'm going to have to grab my key fob because it's got a security system and all that jazz. And I'm going to start it up, run it down the road, just make sure everything's good. That's just one of my things I like to do. And I'm going to get on with the rest of my day. All right, start it up. Alright guys, so the bike's done. I'm going to take it for a short run. Like I say, please like, comment, subscribe. Give me your input. Let me know where you think I'm doing stuff wrong. As usual, I'm open to hearing other views, suggestions, comments. I mean, even on oils. Let's open up that rat's nest and see what we get into. Y'all have a good weekend. Later.